us on the Modern Job Search Checklist. This is Mark, your host, and we always come to you streaming to LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And of course, with me this week is Damian Birkel, my co host. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Good deal. And Nickquolette Barrett is planning to join us. She'll probably join us very, very soon, any particular moment. But got a little bit of quandary because I've got a family matter that I'm going to handle. So I'm going to be in and out, and you'll see me come in and out. So whether Nickquolette joins us or not, Damien's going to hold down the ship either way. But I'm going to be here for part of the ship. So uh, um, in case I don't get a chance to say goodbye to you. I wish you all very happy holidays and hopefully all things will go well. Well, we got guests coming in January. So the next time we'll be back will be January 14th, and that will start a whole nother series of episodes for you. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you're in the chat, just say hi. Say hi to Damien. We'll try to get to you amongst all the chaos that's going on here, and we've got a few things going on. Damien's background looks like he's on vacation because he actually is on vacation and decided to join us, and he's in a very secret location, so we definitely can't talk about it very much. In any case, let's go ahead and get started. This is the Christmas season. We decided we'd go with a Christmas holiday faith spiritual kind of theme, uh, though it's going to be contingent on some of the things that we'll share and some of the things that will be going on with whatever comes out. So we're looking forward to that. But first, I definitely want to talk a little bit about, and that's the wrong question. That was Wednesday's question. We could talk about it, but we won't talk about it here. As a practitioner, Damien, and this was geared to you and Nicolette. And actually, I've seen a few things that might be a little bit different about the spirit of Christmas. Um, are people holding to the meaning of Christmas holidays during their time off, or are people seeing it as a break, or maybe a little bit of both?
I think it's a little bit of both, Mark. I'll give you an idea from my perspective about
Hmm.
Christmas spirit. As everybody knows, I run a support group in North Carolina, and we made a tough decision to go ahead and to have our Christmas party in person.
Hmm.
With social distancing, masks, and everything. And, I was sitting at home agonizing, thinking, all this work and nobody's going to show up. And I'll be doggone 25, 30 people, sometimes
Nice.
from years ago, uh, came to say thank you and to try some Birkel baked ham. And
Hmm.
it was it was a very muted but festive event. And others that I talk to are just grateful for the break, the opportunity to stop and kind of catch their breath in a way that they've really never had to do before. And
Hmm.
you have to bake into that now the surge in COVID, the new strain, and flu. And, when you put that all together, yep, there's a lot of Christmas spirit, but I see it more contained within families and muted, but they're
Hmm.
all the same.
Yeah, yeah. I'm noticing that people are have taken a step back so much in acknowledging that is more of a first of all, I get the language we tend to use these days, the saying happy holidays, because there's a combination of Kwanzaa, the Jewish holiday, and Christmas. And sometimes there might be some faiths and interests that might collide. But I know particularly people who are usually very cheerful about the holidays and about Christmas aren't as much anymore. I do notice that there's a hybrid that people have kind of de-emphasized. I think maybe it might be partly my circle of friends in the sense for me, in the sense that we all have grown children now. So it's not the shopping, the entertaining, and specifically targeting Christmas. Some of my friends have grandchildren, and they might be a little bit more on the other side than like I am, where there's a lot been going on. And really, even my wife, for the first time in 30 something years and 30 years, really, we're going on 31. But every year she decorated. I mean, decorated everything except the outside of the house. But everything on the inside had decoration, every single room. This year, not so much. And there's some, family stuff that has been going on to where she had to veer her attention to, so the decoration didn't actually happen. But all in all, to say is that she started last night, and it's not the same as when the kids grow up. And I think that's why Christmas is what it is for the most part. It's for the children, so to speak. Although um, I know some people are also trying to switch gears. Is so what will it mean for themselves personally? And I wonder what that means as far as networking. It sounds like the networking in person is alive and well from your end.
Uh, it is, but I think it's on a very selective basis.
Hmm.
We knew from the very beginning it was going to be a small group. We knew already a number of the people that were going to come, so there was a familiarity
Hmm.
of those that were going to be there. Now, larger parties, gatherings, etc., at least here, have been uh, pretty much canceled.
Hmm.
And I read an
Okay.
article the other day that talked about um, there was one company that I can't remember, you might be able to help me, that had a virtual Christmas party and had Sting come and play. Um, and
I missed that.
instead,
I missed that because I actually follow Sting on Instagram, so I
ah,
somehow missed that.
well, he played for this party last year, for this company rather. This year they said, not so much. And so they took the money that they paid him last year and
Hmm.
divided it up and sent $100 to each employee and
Very
said
nice.
basically, celebrate your holiday the way that you would like to celebrate your
Yeah,
hobby
very nice.
holiday.
Very
Mhm.
nice. I like that idea. Always. And there was a once upon a time when Christmas parties were really Christmas parties. I think everything from the 90s was practically all about Christmas parties and having the big ones and all that. How large was the crowd? How large is the crowd usually in professional transition?
Double that, 50 people.
50 people? Okay.
Sometimes yeah, even more.
Hmm.
This time when you walked into the room, it was half full.
Okay.
But in years past, all of the tables were full with people standing along the the walls. Uh,
Gotcha.
and really, when it comes to getting the word out, notifying people, et cetera, we really did not do anything different. Uh,
Hmm.
I just think that uh, people, if they don't have to go out, are not going out. They're
Yeah.
just staying home,
Hmm. Hmm.
and there's nothing wrong with that. Better to err on the conservative side than to go out everywhere without your mask and not being vaccinated and say, "Here I am."
Right. Right. Yeah, but yeah, the Omicron variant is definitely have shifted many things. You fortunately you have it at a time when it's still there's a surge, but I'm sure no telling they're looking at this thing like there might be another shutdown. In a sense, which would be very interesting, especially the time when people are planning to travel, and what that would do to the travel industry at this particular time in the hotel industry. It would be quite a blow to those industries again, and the restaurants as well have taken a hit. Although I think the restaurants that have been doing well and that have maintained good relations with their people and are paying people and are expressing how they want to keep them safe, I think they'll be fine in ordering online because this time people are actually prepared to take the mass amount of orders that are there. But yeah, I think networking for a lot of people is a little bit awkward and making awkward decisions at first. But I think ultimately people will find a groove if they know that that is something that's going to be essential to their future. That they're going
Mhm.
to go ahead and be engaged in it rather than taking a break from it, and hopefully people do. But yeah, that would be. It's going to be a very interesting time. I don't know if we have never seen anything like this before. So, but I think people, it's not discouraging people knowing that they need to connect with people. Some people may take it as a way out, and there'll be others who will find their way through. You think?
I agree. And uh, in my experience, LinkedIn has never been as important ever, at least in what I'm seeing, because it is the one business medium where you can communicate, you can become visible, and you can um, create a curated community of folks that are in alignment with where you are and also where you want to go next.
Hmm.
And one of the other things, and I don't want to go spin it off on LinkedIn, but
Oh, but you
with
can feel free to if it's relevant. Yeah, by if it's relevant for sure.
well, thank you. Where I was going to go is, uh, you know, LinkedIn is without borders. There's no passport. There's no airport security. There's no cost of flights. So you can really build your LinkedIn group across the world. I know I have,
Hmm.
uh, and by being able to approach people now during the holiday season, they are much more likely to receive you in a positive manner because of the fact that traditionally during the holidays, um, COVID or not, business slows down. And
Hmm.
if people were traveling, and most probably not, but if they were, they would be in their office doing paperwork, trying to get caught up so that they can start the new year fresh.
Yeah, virtual office in some sense. I don't know how hard it would be calling, being able somebody was to cold call the office. They're not going to get somebody who's at home, I wonder, or what number would they get? Would they get an automation? I think that's an interesting discussion because I think in the past I've even recommended people going ahead and make a cold call to the office when people were in the office. Past couple of years, not so much, but
Mhm.
all you got to kind of read the tea leaves of what the company's doing. And I know there's some companies who said, yeah, we're shutting down for 2 weeks. The smaller ones, not none of the major ones, but once a major company, especially a tech company, if Microsoft says we're shutting down for a couple of weeks, we wishing our people a happy holiday, then guess what? There'll be some others to follow because tech companies are copycat companies. They follow what
Amen.
each other does. But I really believe that, yeah, to even say as well, having said that, your LinkedIn profile is, as you indicated, it is a living, breathing document that's always going to be live and always going to be relevant, whether it's during Christmas Day or New Year's Day or any day around there. But I think ultimately people have to understand that now LinkedIn, for a lot of recruiting agencies, is the
Yeah,
first place of contact. In fact,
absolutely.
I've heard a comment even recently that really resumes is kind of a reference point at this particular point for them because they do a lot of social recruitment.
Hmm.
So that means that they're always looking at LinkedIn profiles and engaging people that way, engaging their candidates that way, and that they'll worry about the resume later. And I know there's other companies that still choose that we've got to have your resume for us to use it as a guard. But I think it's a very interesting approach because a lot of recruiters for a lot of years, they were on the executive firms, at least a lot of them, they only care about the candidate that has his head down, that's
Hmm.
working, that
Hmm.
has that is surging forward with their work. They're not interested in anybody trying to make themselves attractive for LinkedIn, although they have an attractive LinkedIn profile. So I think what that says about the future is that there's going to be more and more employers who are going to put more weight on LinkedIn, whether it's the first or the second means of contact. Those factors are going to be weighed heavily on what they see first through LinkedIn.
Absolutely. And I'd like to go back to what you said about LinkedIn. I think it was brilliant when you said that LinkedIn is a living, breathing document
Yeah, I got it from
because
somewhere else. Well, that's not my original.
I'm going to give you credit. A
Yeah.
little credit.
No, don't give me credit. I just copycat just like the tech companies do. But I think but I think though, yeah, it is a living, breathing document. It needs to be treated that way, and it can change at any particular moment when something happens in your life. There are things I add to my LinkedIn document all the time. And when things happen, if it's significant, of course, I'm adding that, and you can see it as soon as I finish and
Exactly.
push the save button. And that's how time current it is for a lot
Hmm.
of folks. So if people don't realize, and if you're not realizing how living it is, you can go on and say Merry Christmas, everyone, blah blah blah. If you never had engagement before, more than likely you will get a few likes at that minimum. Or maybe somebody that you've been to school with or past work with, you're going to get some engagement, and that's okay. Sometimes that's how the party needs to start, is with something like that. If you've been afraid in the past and haven't been willing to jump into the fray just yet.
Absolutely. And sometimes there are triggers that you don't anticipate. And Mark and I were talking before the show about a LinkedIn post that I did last night, and someone that I hadn't heard from in a couple of years contacted me like that
Hmm.
and thanked me for being as open and vulnerable and sharing the story that I did because he said it really touched me. And I wanted to let you know that it touched me and also wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Yeah,
And go
and I
ahead.
think that's the spirit, and that you bring up an interesting point, and I know we're making a roundabout here in a way back to Christmas and talk about faith. Is that for you to really share something that personal and that revealing about yourself. Like I already knew that, and we talked about it before because you told me years ago that's in a different setting that was the case, and that's how people connect these days. Now, I guess if you want to kind of bring about the spiritual part, the Christmas part, and all that, how you struggled during a Christmas time really is a great way of connecting. I'm not suggesting that you make it the most vulnerable post as possible. You've already shared it with other people, Damien. So that was something that you did, but it was time appropriate. And I think if you have something time appropriate, and it's a good way of connecting, and if it's not too personally identifying as far as any personal information that the public doesn't need to know, I think that could be a strategy in a sense to use something to connect with more people around this time to
Hmm.
kind of encompass everything that we're talking about. If we really want to make a great use of LinkedIn, your thoughts?
And not to rattle through the whole story, but the bottom line was the 1 year that I was our family, because it was a family experience. We're out of work. We couldn't afford Christmas presents, and so we made presents. And I put the picture that my kids gave me, and it's their little school pictures, and then it's a homemade frame, and it says "Our dad is the coolest," and you can see like the smear marks from their fingers. But in 32, 34 years, however long it is, that's the only present that if you ask me, what's the best present you ever received, that would come top of mind, because
Mhm.
there's a lot more to Christmas, to Hanukkah, to all the other uh, interactions and events and parties that you go to. And I don't know if you want to start about faith at this point, Mark, but if you're willing, I'll take the ball on that.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Um, to me, the one thing that is the most consistent uh, year in and year out uh, is my faith, and I do not know where you are on your journey, and that's fine. But I will tell you that in the thousands of people who have come through professionals in transition, either in person or online, well over 95% of the people talk about how their job loss impacted their faith journey.
Mhm.
And I will tell you that at my very lowest, I went to church and I prayed because I didn't know what else to do. Because um, we had a mortgage, two cars, a wife that didn't work, two young children, and running out of health care and any type of severance revenue or unemployment coming into the house.
Mhm.
So I was in a pretty tight spot. And I will tell you that there would be no professionals in transition today if I hadn't been on my knees that Sunday uh, at church saying, if I don't have to move, if you'll just help me, I will not forget what it was like to be unemployed.
Mhm.
And that's where professionals in transition comes from. And for me, Christmas is always very special because there's that faith element that for me means a lot, and it provides consistency for me uh, year uh, upon year upon year.
Yeah.
How about you, Mark?
Well, I have to refer back to really, for me, Christmas since being adult. If I didn't have my friends, and a lot of them I've gone to church with, they always looked out for me. And I remember when I moved to Michigan and was around my friends and around my church friends, or really who were really my friends. Really, they were. I mean, my whole wedding party was the guys I would have met through church or through spiritual events or what have you. They really looked out for me, and two of them, one was a minister and one of them was my best friend and ended up being my best man. Had me come home with them for Christmas with their
Oh,
families, and that meant a whole lot to me at the time because I was, uh, uh, you know. Uh, I was alone. I didn't have any relatives when I lived in Michigan. I had my friends, and while everybody else went home. The guys that took me home with them to meet their parents and their siblings and what have you, they really looked out for me ahead of time and made me feel welcome. In fact, my best friend is still. Um, I just came across him recently. Well, we didn't come across. He came into town. We met for breakfast. just remembering, I remember there was a point in time when I used to talk to his mom almost as much as him, and she was the sweetest person, and I always enjoyed talk. We would have long talk too. So I got to call John, and I got to call his mom, and that was just the way it was, and that meant a lot to me, and that's where I bonded with her, and of course further with him. And even to this day, every now and then, I'll wonder and give when I give him a call, I want to ask how his mom is doing, and which is still alive after all these years. We're talking about 30 something years ago,
Wow.
before I even met my wife. So I think that one of the things, if anything, is not for people, other people, it's prayer and the thinking of God and thinking of the things that make them spiritual and part of the spiritual makeup. The relationships really made it all for me, and
Hmm.
that's my connection when I think of it all, because really it is about the people more than it is about the other things and about even Christmas itself. So for that, that was kind of happy for me as I think back about it, because it saved me. It saved me in a sense of feeling the loneliness. And for me, I'm an introvert, so if I go down that hole of loneliness and wanting to be alone, I'm there for a while. And it would
Hmm.
take me a while to come up, despite being around people all the time. But that time for them to take me along with them for Christmas with their families meant a whole lot. And I didn't have to go down that hall. And since then, I really didn't have to. And I happened to marry a woman that loves Christmas and decorated everything and made it everything for our boys growing up. So really, um, it's funny that I ran into that. I was thinking I was going to marry somebody that didn't care a whole lot about Christmas, and we can don't care about Christmas all that much together, but they end up being the total opposite. So those kind of things that makes the difference, and I think people have to use whatever they can to bring about some happiness at this time, because nobody wants anybody that is going to be dragging during Christmas if you're going to reach out to them and to network and to connect with them in some kind of way. So let's try to tackle something else here. We really got into
Okay.
that one. Let's tackle something else. Um, How do people relate to the spirituality of Christmas during events where networking happens? And is there a difference between those who are employed, unemployed, those who are going through career changes? In other words, uh, is there a level of happiness to people who are employed or unemployed, or is there a downer side to those? Is that noticeable this year to you, and especially with people facing their various situations of being working at home, not working where they want to work, etc.?
Um, I think when it comes to spirituality and happiness, no matter what your faith is, no matter what journey you're on, if you're a faithful, believing person, even when you don't have a job, you have that belief in yourself and in the spirit that you're going to make it. Now, that doesn't shield you from the ups and the downs and the rejection, which by far is the most painful
Hmm.
part. Um, but when it comes to networking events, uh, if it is being conducted by a church or what have you, there, in my experience, there's been some static, if you will, when religion is brought into a networking event. There is a support group that I know of that starts out with a prayer, ends with a reading and a prayer, and that's fine for mainly the people in that particular church. But
Hmm.
there are others that this is a really strong word, but repelled by that. because they just don't feel that spirituality and job search go together. And
Hmm.
I don't agree with that. But on the other hand, screaming spirituality from the mountains to other people when you're job searching is probably going too far, because the bottom line is, when you're job searching, you are a product. You are selling yourself. You're selling all of you, not one particular aspect.
Hmm.
And you can be deeply faithful without being overbearing when it
Yeah.
comes to networking, interviewing, and so on and so forth. Did I
Yeah.
answer your question?
Oh yeah, I think so. And in fact, you framed it in a way that I wish I would have framed the question a little bit better. But having said that, you're right on for the spirit and what I was looking for and what I was thinking of. When you are a, here's the thing. I think that like for our show, we have one take. Um, I don't know if you've heard of Who You Know. It's another show that streams live on LinkedIn and YouTube and a lot of different places. They are definitely a overtly spiritual show. So it's very how should I say appropriate for them to push that apart because that's what they rely on. I believe if they don't go to church together, they that's a big part of what they do. They talk about prayer during the year and all that. So if you follow them during the year, that's what you're going to get, especially this particular time where the emphasis will be put on spirituality and you'll be
Mhm.
talking about Jesus and God. And if you don't like it, but you like them, you're either going to say, well, I'll bow out of this because of my faith and the differences, or I'll join in because I look. That's the reason why you follow them. If you start out one way, then you try to turn another. People are going, "Oh, I didn't follow you for that," and so I think in some instances, like the scripture, I believe is in First Corinthians 9, talks about being all things to all men. That's one of the things you do. You have to read the room and
Mhm.
understand what the temperature is. And if you got a winter hat when everybody wants to get into the tank tops, then you're not in the right room, or you're refusing to recognize what that room is. And I think that's very important for a job search and networking is that you understand. It's like the commercial. I don't know if you've seen the commercial. I forgot the name of it, but they talked about fantasy football, and it's like all the guys and girls, they're all cheering about football. This guy comes in with a little angel costume and with the shirt off, and he was thinking this was a fantasy something else as
Oh,
opposed
right,
to
right.
fantasy football. And it's kind of like that. And he said, "Oh, well, I think I need to go." And they asked him, "Are you sure?" you know, it is hilarious to me because that's exactly what it kind of would look like should you bring your faith where it's not going to be welcome. Not that people don't disagree with you, but the spirit in the room says that this is a little bit more of a festive event than us going around wishing each other Merry Christmas and did you go to church on Sunday? So yeah, I think people have to be good at reading the room, and I think even in networking, that's going to be true. And when you go to a networking event, if it's not spiritual based, you have to be shrewd in the sense of, or you've got to kind of start to think, okay, what exactly is the temperature of the room? If this is the temperature, that's where I'll fall in to make the most of the opportunities that could be before before you or before me or whatever it is.
Hmm. And um, I believe that when you're at a networking event, you need to come across as neutral. And what I mean by that is, um, when I interact with people, um,
Mhm.
including family, um, I don't talk about religion. I
Right.
don't talk about politics.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that is instantly polarizing. And after the election that is still on my mind
Mm-hmm.
and everything that everyone went through, if you bring something like that into a conversation and you're meeting with someone who is of the opposite ilk, you've just went whoosh in terms of being able to connect with that person.
Yeah.
And I am very, very careful because the only way you're going to connect with a person is if you're on common ground.
Right.
And if you bring up topics that are polarizing, you might find yourself in a fight with someone that would be really good for you to get to know. And so my point in this whole thing is when you're networking, of course, sell yourself, but if you're an introvert or even an extrovert, when you're meeting with a person, you want to ask igniter questions. And igniter questions are the type of questions that allow the other person to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
Things like, what college did you graduate from? Are you married? Where did you meet your spouse? Um, I can hear it in your voice. It doesn't sound like you're from around here. What state are you from? All nice and even questions that allow the other person to open up to you and establish that bond. And it doesn't take long. I mean, you can build commonality in 3 minutes or less, and then let the conversation go where it may. But if you bring up a polarizing topic anywhere in that conversation, you're kind of going because of the fact that the person could write you off as one of those people. And you don't want to do that. You really
Right.
don't.
Right. Yeah. Being tone deaf is kind of the worst thing you could be in a workplace these days. Even if it wasn't, let's say, politics, but let's say you're asking for a raise, but yet people are getting laid off in your company. I heard someone share that it doesn't matter whether they're layoffs or not, and I don't know if they mean that in contextually, but I think that that does matter because if your company, you're asking for a raise and people have to make very difficult decisions and laying off people, they're not going to look at you with the same eye that they did before you asking that question. One question like that can turn everybody's attitudes towards that, or at least the person that you asked. And in the
Mm-hmm.
same way, I think you have to kind of read each room and understand what's going on there, and that's part of emotional intelligence as well. Being to understand that you're not bringing a spirit that's going to be different. You don't want to celebrate where there's mourning, and you don't want to bring mourning where there's celebration. So people need to think along those lines and need to have that understanding. You conform to it so that you can relate to as many people as possible. So
Mm-hmm.
all that being said, we'll go on to the last thing, and then we'll go ahead and end it here. And again, this is our last show before the holidays, and we'll be back on January 14th for it. But that is. Wait a second. Did I get? We did kind of talk about everything here.
Mm-hmm. You've done a
But
great job.
well, thanks. But it, it, here's something just to kind of carry that point even further along, because I think it's important that people understand that's the reason why a lot of people fail at networking, because they're not trying to understand what's going to be like a career fair, or and Lord knows we don't know. I think career things are fairs are becoming things of the past,
Yes.
even just because of what happened about a couple of months ago at the Denver airport when they had a career fair. They usually have 5,000 people plus minus from last year. But this year they thought they have it back and they were expecting 5,000 people and less than 100 people showed up. So, not only it's just bad planning, but it's a complete gaffe in misunderstanding what's going on in the rest of the world. So, how will people view that brand where they're used to hiring a whole bunch of folks, but they were thinking that they can continue on? Now, there might be some people might be upset for one reason, but there will be other people who are upset for a whole entire another reason, such as you don't know that there's a pandemic going on. And then it begins with, why would I work for you? You don't know what's going on with the rest of the world, and how can you keep me safe if there was something that was oncoming? So I that's why it's important as a job seeker that you do consider everything else even before you get to the room, even
Mhm.
before you get to an event or any event. It doesn't have to be a Christmas party at this particular point. It could be any kind of thing that you're going forward, that you're bringing in spirit of what's going to really uh, give value to someone,
Mhm.
or even as secondary to be how to be encouraging or helpful or be serving to someone.
One thing that changed the way that I network is it's such a simple phrase. I don't know why I never did it, but I will always um, end or maybe even mid conversation, look the person in the eye. I mean, you're supposed to have eye contact the entire time, anyways, and
Hmm.
say, "How can I help you?"
Hmm.
Because you bring talent to the conversation, you bring abilities to the conversation, and you don't know how you might help this person. And this person may not be the person that has a job for you, but helping this person with whatever it may be, uh, a food drive or
Hmm.
whatever, all of a sudden unlocks all of his relationships, business relationships, friends, contacts, etc., all because you took the time to sincerely ask if there's anything that you could do to help. And I do that whether I'm uh, while I'm working or during the times that I wasn't working,
Hmm.
uh, because it's just a good, solid way for you to show that you value the short time that you spent with the person, and that you're the type of person that's willing to step forward and help, uh, so, unasked, by the way. But many times having asked that question has led me in wonderful directions, people, places, things that I could have never planned or predicted had I not opened that door just by sincerely asking, "How can I help?"
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's excellent because really the hardest thing that people to do is to ask that question without expecting reciprocation back.
Hmm.
I think that's a real cross to carry for some people, because people usually want to go in to get something, and that's a temptation. And I think the other people who navigate that space really well are generous, is that they're willing to give without any expectations of having it reciprocated or even having that question put to them. Some people get prompted because that question is asked to them. They may ask, "Was there something I could do for you?" And you kind of, the conversation before that question really sets the stage of how generous that you appear to be. If you're probing like you're looking for a job and that you want that person to help you, there's nothing wrong with that, and sometimes you got to ask for help. I get that, but there are other
Hmm.
times when that person's not on that particular page, but still you got to think, well, it's not for now. It's going to be for later on down the line, that you set that up. Say, hey, I like to be, if I can help with that particular problem, let me know. Or I know someone I can introduce you that can probably accelerate something or help something or help lift something in that respect, only because you genuinely want to help. not because you're genuinely that you are looking and you're fishing for someone to reciprocate, but that's very hard to do. And I know LinkedIn is very hard to be able to communicate that in writing, but that's the spirit that you want to carry, even on LinkedIn during the rest of the year, that you're there to be serving, that you're helping, and people
Hmm.
see that, and you'll find that you'll get more people who will reach out to you. And really, if you consider the people who are in the limelight, they really build around giving. They just choose
Yes.
who they're going to give to many times. But
Hmm.
for the most part, having been around a few people, they're generous, and you see why they are where they are, because they care nothing but, I want to be of help. I've got the basic things that I need.
Hmm.
So all in all, to say is that we're coming to the top of the hour.
Amen.
And we usually talk about what we got coming up next. And maybe instead, this particular time, we'll talk about, um, you know, just something that you hope for the new year, going forward. If there's something you got a goal you want everybody to know, or something that you're looking forward to next year, what do you have you thought about it that way?
I have. I have three actually.
Hmm.
Uh, I want to get over my phobia of writing. I have no idea why
Mm.
um, I have been so afraid to put everything down on paper. So, number
And
one is cer-
you've written two books, so the irony is.
is number two is I want to create a blog within the Pit website so I have a place to put the things that I
Mhm.
write. And then the other thing, the third thing is I am in the process of developing a course, taking everything that I've learned about job searching and putting it into, you know, one cohesive uh, uh, course, kind of soup to nuts. How about you,
Mm.
Mark? What do you have planned for the next year?
Let's see. Yep, a lot more writing. A lot more writing. A video course, I have toyed with the idea, and I've been looking at a few things, but I'm not sure if I'm in that particular space yet. But having done all these videos and all that, I
Yeah,
think one of the things I like to do is to use video more on some of the other platforms like Instagram and maybe LinkedIn, to do more personal videos as much as I like to do written posts. So that's one thing personally. Uh, a couple of vacations in the next year. Uh, going
good.
to going to a conference so far, the Career Thought Leaders Conference. I've already registered for,
Congratulations.
and hopefully I'll go to Philadelphia, and then while I'm on the East Coast, I'll go see Mom and see it, which I haven't seen her in a while. So that's one of the things, and then uh, my wife and I plan to take a couple of vacations. One
Great.
is to Baltimore to go see my son and his
Your
wife,
son.
so that'll be a lot of
Yeah.
fun. So those kind of things, those aren't lofty goals, but yeah, there's a lot more writing, and there's a lot more little e-guides and books I plan to put out. They're not big books. They're just going to be some smaller guides that will give people from here to there kind of instruction. So I hope to do a bunch of those, at least five or six, if not maybe one a month. So I
Excellent.
plan to get. So we'll see how that goes. And for the rest of you, thank you very much for joining us here on the Modern Job Search Checklist. I would say we'll be here every Friday, but for Christmas, we're going to be back here on January 14th. This is our last show of the year. You won't see me on Job Seeker Nation next week or the next couple of weeks until that show will be January 12th. And guests on both shows, and we'll have as much content as always. In the meantime, happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you all. And you guys be safe.
Thank you, Mark. Merry Christmas.